Hello everyone, welcome to another video. My name is Jamie, nice to meet you. Today we're going to be doing a really chill and casual unhaul. Basically, I just don't have a lot of room for a lot of these books anymore. That's kind of the reality of it, is that I would love to be able to keep every book that I have read, but I just don't have the space in my house to have that sort of massive library that I dream of. So unfortunately, I do periodically have to get rid of books to make room for new ones, because I do love buying books and I do love building up a collection of books that I love. So yeah, I've got a few books. I think I have around 20 books to unhaul, so I will just share them with you and my reasonings as to why I'm unhauling them. I feel like the majority are books that I have read, but there are a few books from my physical TBR that I'm getting rid of as well. Without too much more rambling, I'm just gonna get straight into it. So I hope you enjoy. Leave a comment down below if you think there's anything I should change my mind on maybe. But yeah, I hope you enjoy the video. First of all, we're going to get started with a book that I think is no surprise to anyone that I'm getting rid of. It is The Atlas Six by Olivia Blake. It's kind of a long time coming, to be honest. I bought this last year and I read it for a booktok video, reading really hyped booktok books. And I genuinely thought out of every book in that video, I was going to love this one the most. And unfortunately, it just wasn't for me. I think I kind of fell victim to a lot of people in my comments really hyping it up and telling me that I would really love it, and therefore me having really high expectations. But also I think there was a lot wrong with the book. I really didn't love the writing style. I found it to be all very pretty but really not that much substance, and I just had no interest in it whatsoever. I think there were actually a lot of things I didn't really like about it. That video is still up on my channel. It's my most recent booktok video that was last year, end of last year. So if you do want to hear more of my thoughts on this and why I didn't love it as much, then that video is there. But yeah, I just did not love this. Definitely I'm not going to be reading the sequel. May read other books by Olivia Blake, but yeah, probably just not anything in this universe. Next, I'm going to be unhauling a book that was on my physical TBR, but when I bought it, it wasn't what I thought it was. Anyway, it's Daddy by Emma Cline. I bought this because I really loved the cover, the title. Obviously it's intriguing, but it's a short story collection and I don't love short story collections. I've also not heard the best things about it, which I know is very unlike me. I'm very much someone who likes to give something a go even if it's had mostly negative reviews. You never know if you're going to have a differing opinion, and I definitely believe in people making up their own minds rather than just following the bandwagon of love or hate, whatever it is. But yeah, this just doesn't really look that appealing to me anyway. I have also read Emma Cline's other novel, The Girls, and I think I gave that 3 out of 5 stars. So when it comes to her writing, I think it's good. I enjoy it, but it's not a diehard favorite of mine. So I just don't think that I'm going to be ever really picking this up. So it's time to find a new home. Next, I will also be unhauling another novel from my physical TBR, and I think I bought this quite a long time ago because I just, heard a lot of people saying really good things about it. But now that I've been a very big reader, I've really honed in on what my taste is and what I enjoy, and one of those things is not historical fiction. So I will be unhauling The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. Again, I've heard really beautiful things about it. I've heard that it's really fantastic, but I just don't really love historical fiction. I always find it rather boring, or I don't really want to escape to really traumatic times in history. That's not really my choice when it comes to reading. If I'm going to read something kind of horrific, it's going to be horror or a thriller. It's not going to be set in reality. And this novel is set during the Holocaust. That's not really my idea of escapism, which is fine if other people do enjoy those sorts of novels. I do think there is definitely a time and a place and a purpose for novels like this to share stories about that time in history. I do understand that it's important. However, it's just not to my taste. So I don't think I will ever really be reading this. I've put this in so many TBRs and have just never ever gotten around to reading it. So I think I will just donate it to a secondhand bookstore and it can find a new home from there. I also will say, sorry, while I'm in the middle of this, if anyone is wondering what I do with the books that I unhaul, I always donate them to charity shops or secondhand bookstores or free little libraries. Yeah, I always donate them. I feel like that's the best way to go about things for me personally. Anyway, the next book that I am going to be unhauling is another book that I got last year, and I was really devastated because I was so excited to read it. It seemed so up my alley and I really thought I was going to fall in love with it, and unfortunately I really did not like the novel. So there's no point in me keeping it if I'm not going to reread it, nor am I going to recommend it to anyone. But it is Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. I'm actually also going to be unhauling Love and Other Words for kind of similar reasons, but we'll get to that next. Basically, Every Summer After, I thought it was okay. Like, I thought it was okay. It was really sitting on a 3 stars for a while. What really got me towards the end is that it was just like literally a carbon copy of Love in Other Words, and I didn't actually enjoy Love in Other Words, and it just kind of left a bad taste in my mouth, especially when Carly Fortune at the end of the novel like thanks Christina Lauren, or like there's an author's note where she talks about like authors that have inspired her. Christina Lauren, that author duo, was in there, and I was like, so you have read Love in Other Words and you're aware that it exists, and you're aware that you've like written the exact same book. I don't know, it just left a little bit of a bad taste in my mouth. I know that not every single idea in the world is original. I know that media follows tropes, and I know that like that's how it's easy to find what we like, but I just feel like when it's the exact same story, it really is, except for like a slight difference in the plot twist. Regardless, I think this book was fun in terms of the setting. I thought that was written really well, but like the story itself I just didn't love, so I think I will be getting rid of this. And it's the exact same story for Love in Other Words. Like, I was really devastated that I didn't like this. I really thought I was going to love it, and I just didn't, unfortunately. I do love the idea of the tropes in here, but yeah. Also, for me, in this one, I actually prefer Every Summer After because the plot twist in this like really grosses me out, and I have a lot to say about it. If you know, you know. Like, yeah. Anyway, I will be getting rid of this. I do genuinely really like Christina Lauren. I do really like some of the other books they have written, but this is just unfortunately not one. Even though I think that this is like their most popular one, it's just not for me. So yeah, it's gonna be getting unhauled. Another book that I unfortunately bought quite recently. Oh my god, I read it recently. I read it like last month, and it was one of the most disappointing books that I have read this year. It is Gallant by V.E. Schwab. I love V.E. Schwab so much, but this novel, like, what was it? I honestly don't know what it was. Like, it was very, very lyrical writing, but again, same with Atlas 6, like really no substance. I found this book better than Atlas 6, but like my apathy towards it is stronger. Like, I am so much more apathetic towards this book than I am towards the Atlas 6, but like, because I hate the Atlas 6 more, and I actually don't know what's worse. Anyway, this just really wasn't for me. I didn't really get the plot. I do really love V.E. Schwab, but this was just a massive disappointment, and again, I'm never gonna reread it or recommend it to anyone. So even though it is a really pretty book, I am unfortunately going to be giving it the chop. Next is a book that I'm definitely not going to be sad to see the back of. I really did not like this book. My Colour Vacation by Tessa Bailey. I read this very recently in my I read 5 books in 5 days video, which I uploaded last month, and this was a 1-star read. I absolutely hated this. I think it was just gross. Like, I feel like the content in it was just gross, and it's a romance. It's like a romance murder mystery, which sounds like a fun vibe, but the actual romance in here was so badly done. Like, our characters were just sexually attracted to each other, and that was it. So there wasn't really any other chemistry other than physical, and I just didn't love it. I thought it was yuck. And honestly, within the same vein, I'm also going to be getting rid of You Deserve Each Other by Sarah Hogle, which I read in the same video as this one, and this was the 2-star book that I read. I did not love this. It's the second chance romance, like Marriage in Turmoil, and I just found it to be really childish and really immature. I really didn't like our characters. So again, it's just another like rom-com that I'm not going to be recommending or rereading. So these two are going to be finding another home. I know that romance is so popular at the moment. Like, whenever I'm in a Whitcoulls, which is kind of like New Zealand's version of Barnes & Noble. Whitcoulls is like our chain bookstore. Whenever I'm in there, like, I am always seeing people look at the romance books, and they're looking for books like this. So if I give these to a secondhand bookstore or a little free library, I know they will get swiped up immediately, and I hope that someone else likes them much more than I did. Next, oh my god, this is actually going to be quite sad getting rid of these, and I don't even know if I want to, but I genuinely just don't think I'm ever going to reread them. My love for them has kind of been lost over the past few years. Like, I'm definitely not as enthusiastic about them as I once was, and this is kind of an end of an era. So if you were like one of my OG subscribers when I had a different channel name, all the videos from the era have been privated. Anyway, if you're an OG subscriber, I'm so sorry to say, I'm going to be unhauling Nevernight and God's Grave. This fantasy trilogy had an absolute hold on me in 2019, and like, I think they're still like well-written novels, but I just don't ever like feel the need to reread them. Like, I read them, I enjoyed them. I actually really didn't like the 3rd book in the series, so I actually unhauled that novel a while ago, but I kept the first couple of books because I was like, I love them. They were both 5 stars for me, but now I'm kind of like, I just think my taste has changed, and I think if I were to reread them, I wouldn't love them as much as I once did. Yeah, I don't know, I think it's just time for them to go. There's a few issues I have with them now, like that I'm older and I feel like I have a more developed, like, critical brain. There are a few things in here that I think if I read now, I'd be like, ooh. This one I'm definitely the saddest about. Like, this book was so fucking good when I read it. That ending I was obsessed with. But yeah, the series as a whole, like, definitely I didn't love as much, like, after I read the final book. So I think these are just gonna find a new home. But RIP the Nevernight series. The next books I'm gonna be unhauling is another series. I read this series very recently, and again, it's just absolutely not for me. And I honestly think I might give this series to my little sister because she might really enjoy it. But yeah, anyways, I'm gonna be getting rid of my Inheritance game series. So we have the Inheritance games, the Hawthorne Legacy, and the Final Gambit. This isn't even a trilogy anymore. This is now, they're making more books. I honestly don't know why. Like, it really does not need to have more books in the series. But I just really didn't love these novels. I think they were really bland. I saw this Goodreads review which really cracked me up. And it was like, it genuinely feels like an AI has written this book. And I was like, wait, but it really does have those vibes to me. Like, when I saw that review, I was like, it kind of does have AI vibes. I can't explain it. Anyways, I just didn't love them. I think there are so many better YA mysteries out there, and like, I sometimes get comments. Okay, so I don't love YA. I don't like, I'm not itching to pick up YA, but I understand that there are some YA books out there that I genuinely love and genuinely are to my taste. Well written, fantastic. Good Girls Back to Murder series, for example. And I get these comments sometimes that are like, Jamie, you just really should stop reading YA if you like don't like this. And I'm like, no, but it's not like that. I'm not like shitting on YA to shit on YA. Like, I'm not shitting on these books and calling them immature and juvenile because they're YA. It's because I just don't think they're well written. I'm gonna be getting rid of the Inheritance games. There is a giant wasp that has made its way into my house and I don't know how. Anyways, I'm gonna be getting rid of these. Let me deal with this wasp. The next book I'm going to be getting rid of is The 10 Loves of Mr. Nishino by Hiromi Kawakami. I read this a year ago now. I think I read this at the very beginning of last year, and it just wasn't really for me. I bought this from my favorite independent bookstore. I really love translated Japanese fiction that's like somewhat slice of life. Like, I really love those books. But this one was just a big disappointment for me. I felt like the main character, Mr. Nishino, like, we're hearing about him from like 10 different perspectives from 10 different people in his life. And by the end of it, I still didn't really know who he was. And there was a lot of like weird stuff in here where it's like, I don't really understand the metaphor. I don't really understand what the purpose of this was. I don't know, I'm just never gonna reread it. I'm never going to like recommend it. Again, for all the books that I'm getting rid of that I've read, that's kind of the main consensus, is that I'm just never gonna reread or never gonna recommend. Anyways, I will be getting rid of this one, unfortunately. But I would be keen to read more by Hiromi Kawakami. They have heaps of other books that I really want to read, but this one just kind of fell a bit flat for me. If you have read Kawakami before and there's another book that you really like from her, please let me know, because I know that she's written a lot. So yeah, anyway, this one's just not for me. Okay, I think the rest of the books are from my TBR shelf. Got like 7 left, but they're all from my TBR shelf. So these ones are gonna be a bit more briefer because I don't really know anything about them, like what they're about. First of all, I'm gonna be unhauling this book called Wait by Jeanette Winterson. I really, really want to get into Jeanette Winterson. They are like a literary fiction, speculative fiction author. But this one, I think I just bought from a secondhand bookshop because I had heard that Jeanette Winterson was good. Not realizing that this book is basically just a retelling of the myth of Atlas and Heracles. And I bought this when I was going through a massive like Greek mythology phase, and I just don't think I'm ever going to read it. So yeah, I will be getting rid of this. I don't feel that bad about getting rid of it because like I got it for so like probably $2 at a secondhand bookshop. So I'm just gonna pass on to another secondhand bookshop for someone else to find. The next book I'm going to be getting rid of, I'm kind of sad about because it's physically like very beautiful. Like, it's a very beautiful copy of this book, but I tried reading it and I just don't think I'm ever actually going to get through it. It is Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. It's a brick. It is a brick of a novel. But yeah, I read like the first 50 pages and I just don't think I'm ever really going to get into this. It very much reads like a classic, and I do like some classics, but I'm very picky and very specific about what classics I like. And this kind of reads like the classics that I don't love. It is also historical fantasy. Obviously, if historical fiction isn't my fave, historical fantasy is probably not going to be my favorite. Yeah, I don't know. It looks really fun. like the concept sounds really fun, but like when I was reading it I just could not get into it. So I think I am going to be passing this off onto someone else. The next is a book that genuinely does look interesting. I think my mum handed it down to me saying that it was an author that she really liked, but I just don't think I'm ever really going to get into it. It kind of seems like a Black Mirror episode. Like it seems like one of those like satirical comedies that kind of like deconstructs ideas in modern society, but that's kind of the content that I like to consume like visually rather than through novels. But anyway, it's Chart Throb by Ben Elton. This book is basically about a game show, like a reality TV show like American Idol or something like that, and it's basically just like commentary on those sorts of shows and how those sorts of shows take advantage of like people with dreams or whatever like that. I honestly don't know, and it sounds exciting, but I honestly would rather just watch that one Black Mirror episode about this concept over and over again. Yeah, I don't know, it just doesn't really seem like my particular thing, so I will be passing this on. Next is a book that kind of inspired me to do an unhaul. It is Tipping the Velvet by Sarah Waters. As you guys know, I am in the middle of doing a series where it's like I read my physical TBR and a random number generator randomly selects the book for me to read for that episode. And I actually got this for episode 3, and so I gave it a go. I read like the first 50 pages and I was like, you know what, I just don't think I'm actually ever going to get into this. This is another book that I bought from a secondhand bookshop a really long time ago, and I think I had heard of this as it being like a really great like lesbian novel. And now that like we're getting so much more diversity in fiction, and you know, it's really easy for me to find like lesbian queer novels, I just know that I would rather read those novels in like a romance, like those stories in a romance context, like Delilah Green Doesn't Care or Written in the Stars, or like those lesbian romances that I've been reading. This is also historical fiction, so again, not really my type. I do really hope this goes to someone who loves it, and yeah, this definitely inspired me to do the unhaul, because I was like, wait, if there are books that I actively do not want to read on my physical TBR and I'm actively not interested in, it's probably time to do an unhaul. But yeah, I bought this years and years and years ago, so it's definitely time to go if I haven't read it like 6 years on. Next I have another book that I am probably never going to read. It is Prince of Thorns by Mark Lawrence. This is the first book in a fantasy series. Actually, you know what, I might keep this. Actually, maybe I won't. I don't know if anyone's read this book before. If there are any fantasy lovers out there who have read this book, please let me know if it's worth keeping, because like it does look good. Like it's basically the main character is like a privileged royal child, but then he becomes the Prince of Thorns, leading a grim band of outlaws in a series of raids and atrocities. Like that looks fun, but I just don't know if it's my thing. Anyway, again, I bought this at a secondhand bookshop, and that's when I thought that fantasy was my favorite genre. So I kind of would just pick up like any fantasy book without even really thinking of it. This was a very long time ago. I never got around to reading it, but yeah, I don't know, maybe I'll read it, who knows. Let me know in the comments. This is the one book that I'm like unsure on, so yeah, let me know in the comments if anyone's read it. Next is a book that I'm actually kind of sad about getting rid of, but I just don't have the space for, and I can't really justify owning it. But it is the novelization of Pan's Labyrinth by Guillermo del Toro and Cornelia Funk. I bought this because I saw it and I was like, that looks so beautiful. Like there's so many beautiful looking illustrations, like here for example, they just look so gorgeous, and I really love the movie, but I definitely bought this as more of like a collector's item rather than a book that I was actually going to sit down and read. I just can't really justify keeping it if I'm not going to read it, and yeah, I just don't really have the space for like really fun cool things like this, so I do unfortunately have to get rid of it, I think. But it does look really good. Not look good as in like a book to read, it just is cool. Like it just looks nice and I want to own it, but I just don't have the space, so I will be getting rid of this, and I think someone who does have the space will enjoy this much more. But if you really like Pan's Labyrinth the movie, or you haven't seen Pan's Labyrinth, I really recommend the film, because that's why I bought the book, is because I love the film so much. And finally, the last book. This book is rather infamous on my channel, I think. I did try and read this. I think I just need to be realistic with myself. I'm not too proud to admit that I might not have the brain for some novels out there. This is one of them. This is House of Leaves. I bought this. I was gonna buddy read it with some friends. I just don't think it's for me. Apparently it's like the scariest book that exists. But I tried reading it and I just, yeah, I think I'm probably too dumb for it. I think I don't really get it. And it's a very big book. It's very chunky, and I just don't have the space for something that I just don't think I'm ever going to read and enjoy. I'm not too proud to admit that. Anyways, I think it's just time for it to go. I'm just never gonna read it. But yeah, it's infamous. I read like the first 10 pages and DNF'd it like an idiot. Anyways, I'm gonna be getting rid of this. Goodbye, House of Leaves. I was very ambitious when I bought you. Okay, so those are all the books that I'm getting rid of. I really hope you enjoyed this unhaul. I know not everyone likes unhaul videos. I think it's kind of interesting to see like the ins and outs of like why people get rid of things. Not to do a disclaimer at the end of the video, but I've been seeing a lot of discourse where people are like, oh my god, it's so annoying seeing people like haul all these books and then do like a massive unhaul like a month later. As someone who does do a lot of book hauls and loves buying books, I kind of like hate that discourse, because first of all, like if anyone comments that on this video, the only books that I've gotten rid of from my recent hauls are books that I've read and I acknowledge that I don't like. But I'm also just like, people can do what they want with the money that they have. Like no one actually knows anyone's financial situation unless they like explicitly state what their financial situation is. And I just think it's a bit gross to like, I don't know, judge what people do with their money unless their money actively does other people harm. Like if I was spending $500 at once on Shein and then doing like a clothing unhaul like 2 weeks later with like Shein clothing, yeah, 100% judge me. But when it comes to books, like, and if I'm giving them away to a secondhand bookshop, which I would like to keep in business, I really don't see the harm in that. Anyway, rambling little disclaimer at the end of the video, so sorry. Thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed. If there is any book that you think I shouldn't unhaul and you're like, no Jamie, give it a shot, please feel free to comment. Like honestly, I will genuinely give one of these unread books that I'm getting rid of a go if a lot of people say it's good. Guys, again, thank you so much for watching. A reminder that all my socials are linked down below along with my Patreon, so if you do want extra content from me, all the information is on that page. But yeah, again, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you very soon in another video.